that, ladies and gentlemen, another exciting excerpt of the Scouser and the Scot.
Today we've got a great show ahead for you. We've got Berty Burton from Tigertailz and the City Kids. How you doing, Berty? You keeping well?
Not too bad, lads. How you doing? How you both been?
Yeah, all right, mate. Yeah.
As possible.
all things considered, of course. Yeah.
Obviously.
Yeah.
Let's get straight into the questions then, Berty. Like we've got a few questions to throw at you. So, like you say, let's find out about the real Berty and find out where it all began. So, can you give us a bit of background information? What your first introduction to music was and what piqued your interest?
First introduction to music for me personally was more down to peer pressure, if anything. So it started off, obviously, you know, when I was at school with my mates and everything, listening, you know, figuring out what everyone's listening to and what kind of stuff everyone was getting into. I think my first proper sort of getting into music at the time, I think when it was probably Nirvana. And just obviously, just listen to that angry, heavy, grunge sort of guitar attack and everything, which I absolutely still love to this day and everything. But that's the thing that sort of like piqued me interest a little bit, thinking that this sounds a bit, this sounds just like angry, nasty, just, but just beautiful sound to me ear sort of thing. So obviously, started listening to that. So I started to borrow some CDs from mates and everything, and obviously getting into other things and everything. At this point, I probably, I don't know, 14, 15 years old. I don't know the foggiest thing about music at the time, sort of thing. And I think the main one that hammered home for me, I primarily got heavily into AC/DC, which is my all-time favorite band, just because of their album artwork, literally just because of the logo. I saw that logo, I thought that looks fucking cool, something. So I'll check it out. So you see all these stories of people, like I said, people like in the 70s and 80s were literally just buying albums because of what the gatefold cover looked like or anything like that. I just liked it because of the fucking logo on it. So from that, I delved straight into like AC/DC, went to H&B. I ended up getting Back in Black and For Those About to Rock. Going into this blind, I'm thinking, these look great. Let's just buy it and find out and everything. You couldn't go on the internet to listen to preview stuff and like that. You either borrowed it from a mate or you just bought it and just hope for the best. And I remember sticking on Back in Black, and that honestly, like I said, just changed everything forever. I think the amount of times I probably played What Do You Do for Money, Honey, like over and over again. And so I don't give a shit. Like I said, the hits weren't even registered to me at the time. I was listening to all the frigging like almost B-side kind of things. So obviously from that, I just kind of, it started snowballing with obviously listening to that, and then other bands that sound like that, and started to get into sort of stuff like UFO, and then obviously a bit more of the classic rock side with some Led Zeppelin, and just listening to a lot more of just that classic rock, hard rock kind of music.
How old are you?
32, I believe.
This is quite interesting, Ian, because nearly everybody we've spoken to is that bit older. So when we talk about bands that inspired us, it's way before. And also we were seeing it in TV, and we were top of the pops. You've not come from that. So weren't your parents into music?
They were, but they weren't like massively into it. Sort of. They weren't really sort of like effective. Like they didn't really sort of have much influence into sort of like what I listened to. My mum listened to Slade, and like I said, my dad was quite partial to a bit of Queen and everything, but they weren't like out and out like listening to these sort of things. It's like there's probably stuff that they listened to when they were kids, but they just sort of strained away for it. And then obviously finally to find my mum's stack of bloody Slade LPs that she's got, thinking, why didn't I find about this years earlier? yeah, it's like I said, I just came across it all by myself in a sense, or at least more so, via, friends and stuff like that I was doing, and obviously like reading like classic rockers, stuff like that, when that was, in the glory days of that magazine and everything. Then that's obviously where I started to, see a few more things about some of the other bands and whatnot, and that's what got me more into newer bands today, I think, personally. Like some of the, the past, bands in the past 10, 20 years as well. But now, as far as sort of developing it, I was like a late bloomer, to be quite honest, in comparison to what other people were probably. So my origin story is probably a lot more boring in comparison to what a lot of other people are like, really. So, but
I find it interesting because, like I said before, it's different to what most of the people we've spoken to. Most of the people we've spoken to, like the Ricky Warwicks and people like that, they literally grew up seeing it on TV like I did, because I'm like nearly 60. So yeah. AC/DC, I can remember seeing them for the first time in '74 when my cousin sent stuff across from Australia. So yeah. I kind of take it for granted. So as soon as you started talking like that, I was like, bloody, what age is it? It's the first time, but it's interesting, mate, because you had to start at a point and go backwards, whereas I've always started at a point and gone forward. And that's quite an interesting concept. So who was it actually? Is there one person or a couple of people that inspired you to pick up an instrument? Let's say if it was the bass, why the bass, and who was it and why made you want to be in a band?
The thing is, once again, to sort of being in the bass, to starting off being a bass player, once again, actually, I just remember seeing, it's probably almost similar to the Lemmy story. I remember seeing a kid at school who was playing like who was doing guitar lessons, and he had this like really nice, like candy apple green Strat, and he's got all these girls around him, thinking, I like the idea of that and everything. So I ended up sort of like trying to do some guitar lessons from school and everything. I borrowed this like really battered up like shitty nylon acoustic thing and everything. And I had another friend of mine who was a guitar player, and then another mutual friend of ours who was a drummer. So from school we just sort of came together. Let's try and do a jam and everything. So there's me with like in a barely audible like crap nylon acoustic guitar, in with like a heavily overdriven like cheap nasty 6-string, and then obviously drums, and we're just making this awful sound together. And I literally got to a point where when you're like 12, 13, 14 years old, I'm pretty sure it's down to peer pressure thinking, where the guy playing guitar says, right, you've either got to play bass or you're not in this band. True story. And that's it. That's literally, and then the rest is history, basically. But no, but then like I said, but from that I ended up picking up a cheap bass secondhand and everything, which my dad bought me and everything. And so you better learn this fucking thing, because I'm not paying this much money for you to piss around with it and everything. So, and I just sort of just took to it really, and then obviously from there onwards, I was obviously getting all my albums and sort of listening to it, and then just trying to pick it up by playing along to it. And for me, like I just find it very easy to sort of like listen to albums and tracks and to pick stuff up by ear. And I'm just there, just at home, just like listening to the records and just playing bass along to them and everything. Just put my headphones on, just have my own little world to it and everything, and just absolutely went for it. So
who are your bass gods then? Who are the bassists that you listen to and you go, oh, that's just amazing?
I think for me, once again, is I'm that sort of stereotypical sort of classic hard rock, just like bass players like obviously like Duff McKagan, Gene Simmons, Nicky Six, but then also like John Entwistle, and Christopher Novoselic from Nirvana. It's just like literally the melding pot of like all the classic bass players from like classic rock, hard rock, and everything like that. And of course, Lemmy as well, which has more developed a bit more down the line for my, you know, the style of how I like to play bass as well.
It's quite interesting because I recently read his autobiography, Lemmy, and I'm no expert in guitars or bass, but he claimed, and I don't know how much this is true, but he claimed he played the bass more like a lead guitar than a bass guitar.
Yeah.
And the sound as well was quite different. Is that right? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Because he basically he played his especially more like the Motorhead days as well. Obviously, he did it a bit in Hawkwind, like the Hawkwind area. He basically just plugged his bass straight into a guitar head, because I think obviously when he was playing with the Reverends, I think it was. So obviously he was playing guitar with them at the time. So I think he just, as my history could be completely off, but I think obviously he just had this guitar head. So he just had a bass guitar. So we just plugged it into that because that's all he had, and then that just basically become his, you know, his infamous sound today and everything. So
was it the Rockin' Vickers or something they were?
That's it, the Rockin' Vickers. Yeah, I don't know where the fuck I got the Reverend from, but yeah. So he so then that's basically how he, you know, he got his sound early on, and obviously, you know, Motorhead came on, and obviously he just wanted to have the most nastiest sounding thing as well, because especially if you're in a 3-piece band, where you're lacking a rhythm guitar as well as your lead player. Obviously, when they're going to do solos, obviously you've got that big empty space of not being able to fill it out. So you listen to Motorhead live, and then obviously when, you know, Phil Campbell or Fast Eddie at the time, obviously you listen to him soloing and everything. He's filling this void with this just monster noise of just overdriven bass and everything, and that for me was just, oh my god, it's absolutely fantastic. Thinking how can you make an instrument sound like that, which shouldn't sound like that, but it works.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know,
it's quite hard to replicate though, Lemmy's tone, just due down to his aggression and how he actually played, because he was just phenomenal, really. Like, though, he was a different level, different breed from when bass players actually back then were. And
yeah,
I don't think anyone's actually come close to like being the next Lemmy, if you know what I mean, because Lemmy.
Yeah, and if you see the Lemmy movie, he even himself basically dictates that there is no other person like him. Why would there be? Why would anyone want to try and, you know, sort of try and better what you're good at? I mean, like I said, all the other bass players, like I said, I've said before, obviously they've all got their own different sounds, and from them, obviously, that's where I've sort of, you know, got a melding pot of, you know, the things that I like to play and everything. So, like Gene Simmons as well. Also, he started off playing, you know, almost like Paul McCartney sort of stylistic bass lines as well. But he's playing this, you know, like almost like the speakers have been slashed as well. So he's got a nice sort of, you know, pretty rotten sound from, you know, the early 70s as well. And obviously we got the guys going into the 80s and so forth. And
I think the bassists, irrespective of what, as I've said before, I'm not a musician, but I think one that's hard to beat is Entwistle. As an actual bassist, I think he's just out of this world. I always thought he was amazing.
And once again, he said he's not a bass player. He's he said there's like a little snippet of like a film, like obviously before I think it was like a TV program before he passed away, and there's this thing on YouTube where it's them just literally just playing along, and you see his fingers going like that, and you're thinking, Jesus Christ. But then obviously his sound and technique obviously was, you know, it's almost stuff that, you know, even some guitar players can probably, you know, be envious about playing as well. So he once again, he doesn't play the bass like a bass, but he makes it sound like even playing in the 60s and so with the Who, and he was still one of these people who literally, you know, he was like a statue, a bit like, you know, Bill Wyman, who just stood at the back and everything and just, you know, just doing these things. But then the things he's doing with his hands whilst he still stood there is, you know, it's fantastic.
Can you imagine being a bassist though, having to play along in a rhythm section with Keith Moon. It must have been effective me in some cases.
That's it. But like I said, but there's always somehow they just make it work. But then obviously they still find their way to not outshine when, you know, to sort of, you know, not shy away obviously when, you know, it's necessary and everything, but then they still drive that song onwards, and they, you know, they make it sound, you know, coherent to what they're playing as well. But yeah, just absolutely fantastic. I mean, it's almost like one of those things, you know, we get like a personality clash of 4 people, but then obviously it somehow works.
So let's go through your guitars, your actual setup and your rig. How different is it from playing live to being in the studio or being at home?
To be honest, most of it is pretty. So I think normally when I'm at home and everything, it's more. I said when I'm just like, you know, just playing around at home and everything. I've got all my toys with me and everything. You can sort of see in the background. Obviously, I've got a good array of, you know, of equipment behind me and everything. So I've got like a nice sort of range of things to grab with and to play with. So. Over the years, I've just been one of those sad people who've just been accumulating God knows how many, you know, how many different sort of bits of gear that I don't need and stuff like that. So, but once again, like I said, I started off with like a cheap P bass. Obviously, probably not something far off similar to what you could probably get from, you know, like a start thing from Argos like back in the day. But then I remember someone introduced me to Motley Crue. And I saw Nicky Six with the Thunderbirds. I thought, that looks cool. That looks really badass. And then started, you know, going down the rabbit hole with listening to more Crue and everything and seeing that bass and thinking that's absolutely badass. So then, like I said, I just got to it to being like my instrument and everything, which is, you know, what I think most people know me for and everything. So, you know, I've got like I've got about, you know, 6 or 7 of these, like, you know, the same shape and everything, but they're all different. They're all sort of modded up and everything. So, I mean, this one is...
Before you carry on, right, I just have to say this, because this is for non-guitar people who don't understand why we collect, right? Each guitar has a different feeling and a different tone, and it doesn't feel right. And sometimes you can pick one up and pick another one up, and you'll be able to do something different on it.
Yeah.
So anyone watching it who's going, why do you need all these guitars? They all have different feelings and they all have a different story. And each musician will tell you something different about each guitar. And that's the cool thing about getting guitars. So parents out there, buy your kids more guitars.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Sorry, I have to get that in there.
Bertie, all he's doing there, mate, is because he's like you. He's got a shit ton of guitars behind him, and this is in case his wife watches it. And he's what he's doing is this is foreplay. This is him building up to wanting another guitar, mate. Don't fall for any bullshit.
I didn't comment then.
We'll put it down below. I like
it. But yeah, so I started getting into these. So like for me, like these are, Thunderbird basses, which, you know, are, you know, very well known for people like Nicky Six and Pete Way, and obviously you got Chris Novoselic. Obviously John Entwistle played, and there's a whole host of people who play these, you know, these particular models and stuff like that. So, but these, like I said, I think just the shape and obviously just the feel and just, you know, how they played, for me personally, just sort of paved the way for like my identity as well. So, so from when I got obviously, so I started obviously, you know, just trying to source them as best as I could. I think the first one I ever had was like a cheaper sort of like version, which it did the job and everything for what I was doing for when I was still starting out and everything. But then when I get a bit older and I start getting a bit more into it, then you start investing a bit more into, you know, either upgrading gear or, you know, trying something new. So I saved up a little bit more extra money. I mean, this is technically an Epiphone bass, which is, you can probably, like I said at the time, you can probably get them for brand new from anywhere between £300 and £400 or something like that. It's nowhere near as like expensive as say like a Gibson brand where you're buying them brand new, shy of £2,000 or something like that. When I'm starting out, I'm not going out to buy £2,000 worth of bass guitar or something. So for me personally, was getting a vessel, which a cheap vessel, and then slowly through the years and everything is obviously just getting to know it and thinking what works with it, what doesn't work with it, and then seeing research and seeing what other people use as well, and then obviously then it gets into customization where obviously you might want to take parts out, you might want to put something like aftermarket parts in it, something, so you might rip something out and put something else which might do something completely different. Like I said, this part obviously just does a bit more so than what the stock thing, the stock what do you call it, there's
the standard one that comes out. Is there any, have you got any of your basses that are just as they came out of the factory, or are they all been altered to suit you?
Most of them have been relatively altered, to be quite honest. Like I said, I do them. I try to personalise them a bit more so than what anyone else would have, sort of thing. So it's a bit more, because with most guitars, obviously you can go out to a shop sort of thing, or you can go to a gig and something, you see, that guy's got a Gibson Les Paul or something like that, but it might look like the same as someone else's Gibson Les Paul, or so forth, because it might just be completely sort of like something that probably doesn't even need anything doing to it. I mean, this didn't really need anything doing to it personally. It literally, like I said, straight out the box, played perfectly fine as well. But then just through curiosity and just general experimentation, then I just started to take things out, replace them with other bits and everything, see if that worked and everything, and just become a monster. I mean, like I said, I personalize them as well. So if you can see that at all, wherever my camera is. So I've got me normally it's a Gibson Epiphone there. So I've just I've got someone who did a personalized thing saying Dirty on it. So when this one's affectionately named the Dirty Bird. So but this is like my bass. This is what people know me for. So white bass. I mean, like I even got this this fake binding put on it. I said changed it to a black pick guard. Changed the tuners on it and stuff like that. It's something, like I said, I just wanted to make it look like a classic rock bass, but just like I said, but it's nothing that someone else couldn't do. But
most of the modifications that you've done then, Bertie, are they more for cosmetic reasons than sound?
A little bit of both. I mean, like I said, the visual cosmetics, like I said, the pick guard, the truss rod cover, that and the binding stuff. That's purely cosmetic. That's just literally image. But like I said, the brick, the aftermarket bridge which I put on, like I said, considerably. Considerably, like just change the tone, because it's a contact style bridge. So where the other ones, like the factory ones, like I said, the bridge is like floating, so you've probably got like a shy of a centimetre between the body and the actual bridge sort of thing. This one's like screwed down to the wood and everything.
All right.
And once again, the tuners I've got, these ones, they're called they're hip shot ultralight tuners. So once again, because the Thunderbird is also a neck heavy guitar as well, this also slightly combats that thing as well by being slightly lighter, and obviously like once again it's aesthetic and ergonomic as well. So it's the aesthetic changes obviously the clover type pegs like you would on a traditional P bass or something like that, but then like I said, it's got the the added benefit of it being a lot lighter. And also, one thing I always recommend to every bass player under the sun is one thing which some sort of like more quizzed up bass players will know is it's one called a D tuner. So obviously most guitar players obviously are quite accustomed to doing the old drop D bass, guitar tune and stuff like this. It's a fun way to play it on guitar and stuff like that. But then obviously doing it on bass as well, it's good to obviously do the drop D stuff as well. And it's this little thing, like I said, called the D tune, called a hip shot. So it's got like a little mechanism on there. It's got a little lever. You pop that down, and it instantly drops it down to your D tuning. So whereas be there go just dang, tuning it down, just takes a flick of the switch and it automatically works and everything. So once again, it's one of these things I picked up from what pro musicians were doing as well, and thinking it's saved my arse on plenty of times from doing shows and everything with alternative tunings as well.
That's good. What about your amps and your cabs then, Bertie?
So my amps and my cabs. So let me just pop this back down a second. So as far as amps and cabs are going, so obviously I started off the old Ampeg group. So I started off with just crappy, just cheap amps that I could get at the time and everything. And then finally, found some guys who were selling some Ampegs at a decent price. Was finally saved up a bit of money and got one of these as well. I mean, even this this particular head's not the top market one. This one probably the weighs, because it's one of the solid state ones as opposed to the big tube ones. So it probably weighs like a quarter of what a big Ampeg head weighs. I mean, if anyone's carried an Ampeg head, then God help your back. But then that one, like I said, I've been using this one a bit more recently, but the ones on top, I don't know if you can really see them properly or not. They're obviously those, let me see, is that one plugged in? So these are dark glass heads. So it's, like I said, it's probably about the same size as like a letterbox sort of thing. But like I can put this in a little bag. I can put it in my suitcase with my other bits and everything, with all the clothes, stick it on there and go to hop on a train or in the bus and whatnot, and not have to it's quite lightweight. It's got small footprint in it. So it's
is that like the bass version of the Kemper?
No, it's basically like a so it's a Class D amplifier. So it's like it's just like your small simple electronic heads. So it's got no tubes or anything. It's just literally just like a small compact amplifier. So it's got like the normal. So there's two different ones. I mean, the one that's up on there, that's the model that's before this one. I mean, these are currently limited edition ones as well, which I got. So I mean, this one's number 90 of 999. So I mean, these normally come in just plain silver, but I contacted Dark Glass directly, and was lucky enough to get them straight from those guys, and they helped me out with that. So they're absolutely fantastic for, especially a band where you're traveling around, like I said, with a smaller footprint sort of thing. So obviously, if I'm not in a van with everyone, I'm able to take everything along with me. It's fantastic to, like I said, just chuck in a suitcase and take along with me. But the 900 watt, so they're loud as well. So something that tiny, if you plug that into an Ampeg 810, and it absolutely just roars. So and I also use a lot of overdrive and distortion with my bass playing as well. Obviously true to what my heroes do as well. I mean, let me plug it in actually. So once again, another Thunderbird bass. So this one is a Gibson bass, of course. So I mean, so I've gone back a bit more old school, so going back into the old Ampeg bass now. But then, like obviously with the cab, I use an Ampeg 610. So I used to have an 810 a while back and everything, but we weren't gigging as much at the time, so I sort of sold it off and scaled it down for the 610. So the plus point with the 610 is, switch that bugger on. It's just the right amount of size for being able to, play slightly larger venues and everything, and to at least push some air out. But then it's not too small enough for the smaller venues, and you can have it quite low on for the lower venues and everything. So, but like I said, so you get the typical bass players in. This might become completely distorted out on there and everything. So I very rarely play clean in the sense and everything. So that's quite clean for me. So then turn these buggers on and everything. It sounds a bit more rooter. And, so that's my main sort of sound. So it's a bit nastier and everything. So I've slightly gone a bit cleaner these days as well, so because it ends up being a bit too like top heavy, too guitar-y sounding sort of thing. So when we're doing stuff in,
you're gonna have to change your name then, Bertie, from Dirty Bertie to Clean Bertie.
That's it, yeah. So, it's, like I said, it's just especially when you're playing at home as well and everything. When you're on yourself and you got all your toys in front of you, and you're just just having a play along and everything. So you're not just going to be like you want to be like. Like I said, it's attitude, but without having to, you're not sort of, taking the line away from guitar players quite, but
you're a bass shredder.
I wouldn't even say that, to be honest. I probably couldn't play like lead guitar for shit and everything, but I just like the rawness of the sound and everything. It just it just brings something else rather than just being what people think's a bit inaudible and stuff like that. So if it works for Lemmy, if it works with Gene Simmons and whatnot, then why not utilize it as well?
So while you're talking about that, can we move on to how often you practice? If you practice playing, how do you practice? And if there's anybody young watching this who's thinking about picking up a bass and trying any sort of like tips and what they should do, what they shouldn't do, etc.
So I should probably practice a lot more so than I really should and everything. So, but normally when I do practice, I'll occasionally obviously plug into the old amp and everything. I'll turn it a little bit down so it's slightly audible, and put it on like with a CD and play some stuff. I've got a couple of tracks where I've got some songs which, like some of our own songs, which is like the whole mix, but without the bass, so I can just play along with those as well. Like with Tigertailz, we play to a click track as well, so sometimes we can play along to these kind of tracks and just to sort of get in the mood. Or I could just even go as simple as to just plugging in my headphones to onto my iPhone and listening along to any old music really. So I might just fancy like playing along to Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction and just playing playing some Duff McKagan bass lines, or I might just want to just have a grind down and just play some Dr. Feelgood with the old Motley Crue sort of things. But it's good to, like I said, but it's good to obviously learn what you, especially if you're learning for playing an actual show, or you're playing for a gig, or like especially paid work as well. I personally find it a lot easier, but this was just me to pick stuff up by ear. So like I said, I've normally gone to rehearsals when I've like joined with other bands and helped out other bands and depping with other bands. They'll send me the CD down of what, you know, what's they're going to be playing, what the set list is going to be like, and I'll just probably listen to these things on a loop and just literally just get a feel for the song, and obviously just, you know, get it on 2 or 3 times in and everything. I'm probably, you know, still playing along with it and, you know, getting into it. But then, especially if it's, you know, stuff where, say, for example, for Pope Stars playing the Ghost stuff, I mean, like I said, the majority of stuff's quite easy to play along with, but then there'll be a few other little bits where it might be a bit more fiddly and everything. So I'll go back and even that YouTube's fantastic for learning stuff and everything. So I mean, there's nothing wrong with using reference material for anything really. So I mean, like obviously with YouTube, you can use it for everything these days to learn, to figure stuff out and everything. But like I said, I just, for me personally, like I said, to listen along to with a song or something, I just, like I said, just listening by ear is how I personally do it. I mean, when I was a kid, obviously I could learn how to read tabs and tablature. I could not play along to that any, like, you know, these days or anything. I could read it, I could figure out what it was, but I won't be able to sort of, it just looked completely alien to me now and everything. But the best thing to advise to anyone who's thinking or considering about picking up a bass and everything, especially if you're having bass lessons with whoever it might be, put your foot down and play what you want to play. Don't go in. I mean, I think I remember going in playing, doing like some bass lessons when I was a lot younger and playing along to stuff like the Jam and stuff like that. It's not really my kind of thing. It's like I want to play fucking Guns N' Roses and stuff like that and stuff like that. So I kind of, you know, put my foot down. I was like, can we not try this out, stuff like that. So then we're finally there, you know, playing bloody Battery by Metallica and stuff like that, and you know, just getting onto it. But like I said, stick to what you know, stick to what you like, and learn from what you like. So say if you are a Metallica fan, like I said, do your research by, you know, either like watching Metallica videos, watching music, you know, concert gigs and stuff like that, and you just pick up. Like, so I found it easy just to pick up like silly, simple stuff like how even, you know, they play the thing, and how, you know, how they want to be, you know, perceived as, you know, as a bass player, and how they pick up their things. I mean, like I said, I'm a visual learner, so like I said, for me personally, I just watched, you know, music DVDs and music videos of, you know, what my heroes did and how they were playing these things, and almost like trying to mimic what they do, and just, you know, try almost like being an emulation of what they were doing. But then obviously, you know, you're still obviously going back to sort of, you know, making sure that you're locking in with the song, and that you're learning it, and you're playing along to it properly as well. But then just being yourself. Like I said, if you know, I mean, Sid Vicious wasn't the best bass player in the world. I mean, he's probably not, you know, even a good bass player full stop. Anyone could, you know, could argue that. But, you know, he had this presence and everything. He had this thing where he was able to get away with it and everything. He made it look. But that's the thing for me personally with playing any instrument, with doing any of these kind of things, is that's what the thing that made me get more into bass playing was obviously seeing what my heroes were doing and gravitating more towards the people that made it look cool. If they made this thing look cool, like I said, it's referred to as a bit of a boring instrument, but like I said, with John Entwistle, with Lemmy and stuff like that, if you can make this thing interesting, if you can make this, you know, more than what it is, then like I said, you could inspire other people yourself and everything like that. I mean, when I started obviously going back out and doing gigs myself and everything, a good friend of ours was supporting us doing a show. It wasn't quite a big gig at the time. I remember him coming up straight to me after the show and he's saying, "You're one of my favourite bass players at this moment in time." I said, just what you're doing is just absolutely fantastic. So, and I thought that was fantastic. You know, for someone to say that, I was almost like, you know, an influence on them, or, you know, they dug what I did or something. It's, you know, it means, you know, it means the world and everything. So, I mean, for me personally, I'm definitely not one of the best bass players going at the moment and everything, but I'm damn good at what I can do. so I'd like to think anyway. So,
to be honest, though, Bertie, it brings us on nicely to the next one, which is what gives you the most pleasure about being a musician. And there are downsides to that as well. And like you said, I think you just said it there quite clearly, that like someone coming up to you and saying that you're one of the best musicians, like, you know, gives you inspiration and stuff like that. That must have given you a bit of a massive boost.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, as I said, I could be quite a self-conscious person, as well. So for someone to come up to you and say, you know, you get people all the time when you do shows and say, "Oh yeah, you guys were great," and stuff like that, and they haven't. You know, sometimes it's, you know, it's just like hearsay and stuff like that. But then you get some people who come up to you, get really excited about what you're doing, and like come up to us and speak about. Even people asking me about what gear I'm using and stuff like that, and obviously, you know, stuff like that. I mean, I don't tend to have any secret. I don't like have any, like, you know, anything reserved for myself for what, you know, for what I use, for what I, you know, I play and stuff like that, and like and everything. It's stuff that anyone else can do or anyone can access as well. But like I said, it's for someone to come up to you and say, you know, that was awesome, or, you know, stuff like that. It's, you know, it really is a high.
Am I right in saying though? I mean, I remember when Pete mentioned you to us. Pete K. Malley talked about you last week to Ian and I, and he talked about you as a performer.
Yeah.
More than he mentioned that, well, you're a great bassist. He says, "Oh man, he loves every gig, puts a show on." And is that as important to you, or more important to you than, say, somebody come up and saying you're the best bass player they've ever heard?
It really is it's completely depending upon the mood of the gig as well. I mean, we've done. I mean, like I said, saying that you know, the low points as well. I mean, depending how a night is as well, or depending what a show could be like or something, or how the day's gone or something, can completely affect how you you present yourself as well. I mean, I could have had like the shittest day going or something like that, and then we get to a show or something. This, you know, the sound check's awful. You know, it sounds terrible. You get there and there's only like 3 or 4 people there, and it sometimes, obviously, you know, those are the low points where, you know, it can get to you, and it has happened to you. It's happened to everyone. I've played a show before in my early days to literally I shit you not, one person and his dog, and like I said, but then we took a spin on it. We thought, okay, like I said, it's not going to be a gig. It's not, you know, we're not going to be doing as big as what we're used to or something. Let's just use this as a rehearsal. Let's, you know, use this opportunity to just you know, tighten up and still play along to these things, and then just shake it off and everything. But I mean, like I said, there are plenty of low points in comparison to, you know, to the highs and everything for any situation. So, I mean, we had it where we were almost going to go to America with Tigertailz, but we couldn't go in the end because one of us wasn't able to enter the country at the time. So, you know, that was a big down. We spent all this money on plane tickets and everything, and, you know, we were looking forward to seeing a lot of international friends. So and that, you know, that took a big hit on us and stuff like that. And it does get to you as well. It can sort of create a bit of a funk or something, but then just try to think of a positive spin and stuff like that, thinking like recently, at least within the past year, and especially with the, you know, with what's going on with current events, it's trying to find a better outlook into, you know, making sure that you're proactively doing something which will probably benefit when we go back out. I mean, like with the City Kids, we've not done a single live gig yet because we as good got everything together literally like a month or something before, you know, everything happened. But we're sitting on an album that we've released. We've released a single. We've released an EP. We've got X amount of videos out. So we're like everyone else. We're just, you know, on the starting block, waiting to go like every other band is. I don't think any other band is as G'd up as we are to get out there and do gigs. I mean, like I said, a lot of other people, I suppose, have been a lot fortunate to be affected with what's been happening recently as well. And you know, it's hit them hard as well, like both, you know, physically, mentally, obviously with the work and with their particular line of works as well. But for me personally, obviously, I've been quite lucky to just keep doing what I'm doing and everything. And like I said, trying to G myself up more than anyone else, and trying thinking, well, I'll keep doing this. I'll keep, you know, going out and doing what I can do and everything. And if it reaches out to one person, then it's better than no people. So yeah.
So you mentioned before, obviously you're in a few bands, and they cross genres as well. You know, Tigertailz to me don't sound anything at all like, you know, the City Kids. The City Kids aren't like Beth Blade, for example. So can you talk us through why you're in all these projects and you know, because with me, I couldn't do that. When I was a singer in a band at a time. There's no way I would have went and done. I just couldn't. My head couldn't have taken it. So can you talk us through why you do it, and when you decide, yeah, I'm going to work with them, you know, what is it about them that makes you want to do it?
For me, it just keeps me busy, which is quite good because like I said, there's like 4 or 5 different bands that I've, you know, been playing with or associated with, and the majority of them are all quite different. I mean, like I said, I use, you know, the P bass, the Thunderbirds for the majority of the gigs and stuff like that. But then, obviously, with like doing the covers, doing the Poststars thing, I use a Fender bass, which is like I said, completely different to what that's like and everything. So for that, I literally, you know, got a completely brand new bass to play with that sort of style of thing. So it's, you know, it's adapting to, you know, to what's going on, to what's happening.
And how different,
for me,
Bertie, how different, you know, like when you're doing other people's songs, so you're having to play like another bass player if you're doing Ghost, yeah? So how difficult is that, you know, or I see quite similar to your style anyway?
It's not too bad. I mean, I'll be very honest. I mean, like playing along to, like I said, someone else's bass stuff. Like I said, we're playing with the Ghost bass lines. It's more a challenge for me. It's more for me to sort of like have a bit more of a flex out with doing a bit more complex, you know, bass lines and stuff like that. But then the tone and the sound and everything is probably not too derivative from what I can play with my own stuff or anything like that. So, but it's probably a bit more polished, a bit more, you know, a bit tighter and everything like that. But then with what I do with Tigertailz, is, like I said, it's, you know, it's that sort of hair metal classic rock thing. So it's got a bit more attitude and everything, a bit more rawness to it. City Kids, it's a lot more sort of punkier, you know, almost like Motorheady style thing to it as well. So I mean, and I play these things hard. I'm punching these things whilst I'm playing as well sometimes. And like I said, and obviously Beth, you know, when I play with Beth as well, sometimes it's a bit more reserved back and everything. So I'm not like with Tigertailz. I can go out, I can be as boisterous as I want, and sort of being my own person, but within this, you know, collective band sort of thing. It's almost like it is a band where you can showboat a bit and everything, but like playing with Beth, it's you know, it's Beth played in the Beautiful Disasters. It's, you know, it's the spotlight's on her. I mean, she obviously, you know, she credits all the guys to being the whole of the band as well. But then me coming in, obviously playing with her, I know where to reserve myself back, and obviously just, you know, just being there for the song, as opposed to sort of being, you know, having a bass above my head and stuff like that, and just, you know, being a prat and stuff like that. And yeah, and like I said, it's fun because it keeps it different, because it's not, because then it's like I said, with me playing with the City Kids, it's not me playing Tigertailz bass lines in the City Kids. And with the City Kids, like I said, when I was playing with like the Last Great Dreamers, when I played with them at one point, I'm not playing Tigertailz bass lines with Last Great Dreamers. You know, I find it easy to adapt to what they want to play at the time, so I might use completely different.
That's an interesting one, that, because obviously you're playing in different bands, different music, different styles. Have you had to learn different styles of playing, or have you had to like pick things up? I.e., like, you know, obviously you're on about punk, you're on about hard rock. You've got to be able to, like, you know, adapt your own playing abilities, and, like, you know, if you have to learn some new stuff.
I've not really had to, in a sense, learn like a brand new genre or anything like that. I mean, like all the sort of like the stuff that attributes to like rock or metal playing, it's almost quite inclusive to that sort of playing and everything. So I've never had to, you know, like I said, you know, the genres I play with, I've been fortunate to be relatively similar, in a sense where I'm not really having to push myself extra to really need to learn anything sort of more than what I already know. So it's adapting my type of bass, you know, my type of playing style, but to a way that works with the band, with the project at the time and everything. And yeah, got myself lost there now.
So what you're saying is, it's always Bertie that's playing, and the style doesn't really change, but you will play to suit the song, irrespective of whether that song's with this band or that band or the next band. So it's about the overall song.
I mean, if I go out and playing with the Last Great Dreamers, when I was playing with those, I'm not going to go out and play, you know, play like how I want to play it. I'm not going to be putting, you know, X amount of overdrive and distortions in front of my sound and stuff. I'm going to be playing, you know, a lot more relatively, you know, slightly cleaner sound, and, you know, playing true to, you know, to what the song is. Obviously, you know, being a bass player and obviously, you know, filling out the songs and everything. But then I was fortunate enough to have enough you know, equipment and gear to sort of be, you know, that sort of Swiss Army knife of adapting to what needs to be done and everything. So like I said, Tigertailz sounds completely different to City Kids, that sounds completely different to Poke Stars and so forth.
So when you play in these different bands, there's obviously some of them where I'm imagining you have a part to play in the songwriting. But even if they're not, you obviously must witness it. What's the kind of variations between how they write songs among the different bands? Let's not look at the Ghost band, because obviously they're playing, they're copying out of somebody else. But of the original band, you know, how much variation is there in how the songwriting goes with each band? How does that affect you?
It's relatively easy for me, to be honest, because I mean, the majority of times when I've come into doing stuff, it's at least like some, you know, sometimes 70% of the songs have been like quite written and everything. So the majority of when we're doing the Tigertailz stuff, obviously when we did the last album, we Jay had already written about like 90% of the album and everything. So obviously it was just a case of getting us in to do our parts there and everything as well. But then obviously doing it to how we like to sound it as well.
So does he write the bass parts and you come in and play it, or does he just say this is the chords and this is the song, and then you have to do your own thing?
So and everything is, like I said, sometimes the bass lines are sort of like, you know, pre-written in and everything to sort of just sort, you know, to see what it sounds like with, you know, with a bass in it. But then I'll get it, and then I'll, you know, I might either stick true to how it is because it'll, you know, it just works something, or I'll just play my own sort of you know, style to it as well, and just, you know, make it sound like me rather than to make it what, you know, to what Jace makes it sound and everything like that. And the same as well with the City Kids as well. So the first album was pretty much, like I said, written by you know, by JJ. So he pretty much, like I said at the point, he'd written the guitars, the vocals, you know, even the bass lines, and he'd send them out to us. But then we'd do our own spin to it, where we'd demo it down and everything. We would record it, and then he's like, "Oh, you know what? I never even thought about doing it like that way or something." So then he'd have to go and then re-record guitar parts around that and stuff like that, which is quite good. So we, you know, especially like I said, you know, once again, current situations. I mean, the first album we recorded, like I said, remotely anyway, but that's just because that's how we were going back and forth with writing the album anyway. But then the writing process is just pretty simple, to be quite honest. Like I said, we just, you know, throw ideas together and everything. So I might write a couple of tracks and send it his way. And then obviously, you know, a few adjustments or something, or they'll make it work to how I've done and so forth as well. But like I said, I'm very accustomed to being able to sort of come into, you know, to pre-written songs, not necessarily pre-written bass lines and everything, but to come into, and then obviously put my spin on it as well. So, like we did a charity track a while back and everything for a Van Halen cover called Dreams 2020. We did the cover of, yeah. So we did that as well, and it was one of these things where they said, so I'm quite happy to sort of play along to, you know, to obviously something, you know, to how it should sound and everything. But then they just said, well, you've got complete freedom, just do what you need to do with it and everything. So it was great to obviously, I know once again it's doing a cover thing, but I was able to still go in there and, you know, play it as if I had written the bass line and everything. So I ended up using like a 5-string bass for it as well, so I could get some lower registers in some parts and everything. But no, like I said, I'm just a team player normally when it just comes to things and everything. I just sort of I'm like with most gigs and everything, I just turn up when I'm needed.
That's not a bad thing, mate.
Yeah.
So obviously this is aimed at anyone who's wanting to learn how to play bass, and anyone who's interested in, like, you know, becoming a bass player. So can you give us 6 bass players who you think they really need to check out, they really need to listen, they need to understand the style, what they're doing and stuff like that? Who would you recommend?
Obviously in the rock genre, Berty, you know.
Oh yeah, I think I'm not going to be straying any further from there. So I'm going to say for my number one person, like, bass player to sort of follow along straight off is Cliff Williams from AC/DC. Straight off, because he's no frills bass player, but much like all of AC/DC songs and everything, it's not hard bass. It's not hard music to play along with. I mean, that's even how I learned how to play guitar, how to play drums as well. I say play drums, but you get the drift. But he, you know, it's he's the definition of solid rock bass player and everything. He's there for when he needs to. He's not showy or something like that, and he keeps that song driving. He just gets those songs, you know, just carrying on when they need to do it and everything. And he's been doing it for as good as shy of 40 years and everything. So that's definitely, obviously, for you know, a starting block, Cliff Williams definitely. Then to maybe go a bit further along, I'd probably say look into obviously John Entwistle as well. So it's still playing those, you know, those core bass lines and everything, but then that's also showing where you can have those extra like flourishes of, you know, exploring the neck when you're playing along, like on the bass and everything. It's having that sense of exploration with doing that sort of stuff as well. I'd also say, I'd probably say definitely Duff McKagan as well from Guns N' Roses. So once again, he's another, you know, hard rock bass player, but he also got, you know, a lot of punk elements to how he plays as well. And that's, you know, he's got a very unique way of playing as well. He's got like he's got a very solid sound as well. But he's also able to have like a variation between the style of things he plays with, you know, the material he's done with Guns N' Roses, with Velvet Revolver. So you've got the hard rock classics, you've got the ballads, you've got the you've got the punk tracks and everything. He's got that nice sort of like rounded sort of sound as well. And then another one definitely would be Gene Simmons. And I think a lot of people who aren't musicians, who aren't, you know, who don't really comprehend about like songwriting and, you know, and the musical aspect of actually playing along to musicians. I would say he's an underrated bass player, but I don't think people give him as much credit for his bass playing as to obviously his, you know, his politics outside of, you know, being in Kiss and everything. But an absolutely fantastic bass player. Like I said, he's a 70s bass player, but he still pushes ahead, and obviously, but doing that and singing at the same time is a perfect example for someone who obviously might want to get into singing as well, but singing and playing the bass at the same time. So he's still able to do all this stuff up and down the neck of the bass and everything, but while still singing and doing what he does. But then once again, he's another one of these people where, you know, it's a bit Marmite. You might not agree with, you know, some might not agree with me, but he makes it look cool to a sense. You know, he was his own character for doing that, so he made these things look cool.
I think the problem with Kiss is there's too many distractors, because Gene Simmons makes it quite obvious that it's all about business with him. But in order to create that business, he still has to be a great performer, a great songwriter. You know what I mean? It's somebody who grew up. You know, I was born in '61. So when the first time I heard Kiss, and I heard Destroyer and God of Thunder and Kiss Alive 1, I don't care if you were around in them times, you're not somebody that's now going to come on social media and slag off Kiss. I'll tell you that. If you were actually
the thing is,
you remember it, there's nothing to slag off about them.
The thing is, you can go to any Kiss concert. You can go to a Kiss concert and you'll have already seen the gig already. If you've seen Kiss before and you go to Kiss, you're not seeing anything new. But then you're still out there spending 70+ quid to go see them, because they're timeless. Like I said, they've been going shy of 40 years as well. And they still want to go see them because they're fantastic. I said, the band collectively are, they can't be beat, can't be replicated. I mean, of course, it's a show as well, but then, the songs are solid as well. Stuff that was recorded in the 70s are still strong in, 2021.
Oh, yeah.
So who else we got? So when is that? That's 4, I think. Then I probably go in.
Would you mention Novoselic?
So yeah, I'd probably say Novoselic because, well, I think he's quite underrated as a bassist as well. So because he's a person who did not give a shit about what gear he used. He didn't care about what amps and setups he had. He just used what was to him and everything. So, and as long as it made a noise, then that's what worked for him. I mean, I kind of had that mentality when I was a kid as well. I just thought I was going to be this punk player. I thought, right, I've got my bass or something. I'm just going to turn up to a gig and just plug it into any old amp I've got and everything. And as long as it pumps out some sort of noise, then it'll do fine or something. But then, like I said, he wrote some fantastic bass lines. I mean, that bass line to Lounge Act that he plays is it's fantastic. So that's probably one of my favourite ones to play. Like when I go into, obviously, when you go to a guitar shop and if you've got the people who are playing the token sort of bass lines or guitar parts and stuff like that. Lounge Act by Nirvana is probably one of the things I play because it's just got that it's got that everything that slides and pull offs and all sorts. And like I said, it sounds absolutely shit hot as well. And then I probably would say number 6 probably would be Lemmy, I think, because like you said, he was playing it like how a bass should not be played. But then obviously, like he was doubling up as a rhythm guitar as well. He was making this noise, and he was just making like the nastiest sound. Like I said, it was the band that it was too metal for the punks and too punk for the metalheads and stuff like that. But it sounded incredible. But then you can't even replicate his sort of sound without it sounding. Without it sounding horrible as well. So I mean, I can turn these buggers up and have them overly distorted and try my best to do a Lemmy sort of style bass playing or something, but it won't be a patch on what he could ever do because he was drowning out the rest of his bandmates to the point where I think one of the quotes I think was on his was when he was speaking to one of the sound engineers at a venue at one point, and he was saying to him, "Can you hear that horrible sound?" It's like, "No, neither can I. Turn it up." So I thought that is but I think the majority of those bass players as well is they had an attitude of how they went about playing it, and they ultimately they just made it look cool. And like I said, you can argue like other people like like Nicky Six or Sid Vicious and stuff like that, who are sometimes a little more style over substance and stuff like that. But then it's still one of these kind of people who still got me to pick up a bass. I mean, I might not exactly sort of not 100% completely sort of battering off from what they do and everything, but then it helped pave the way to me to hone to an instrument where this is what I'm recognised for playing. I mean, I think if everyone ever saw me playing a guitar or behind a set of drums or something, they'd probably be scratching their head thinking, well, why the hell's he doing that? He doesn't play that. Yeah. So I can't, I probably can play these other things, but that's what I'm known better for. So why not just stick at it?
100%, mate, 100%. So that takes me on to the last question, which is because you just said this is what matters to you. So let's fast forward a number of years, and you're sitting there, Bertie, and you're looking back at your music career. You're no longer doing it, if that's the case, or you're not doing it as often. So what would success look like to you? What would you count as being successful?
I think for me personally, like any sort of success story, well, like you said, is if you'd have had influence or anyone like that. I mean, you could, like, say for example, you've got Airborne, who's you can obviously say it's like a carbon copy of AC/DC. Even Angus Young's got to know, obviously, like I said, that they're responsible for how they sound and stuff like that. So, but for me personally, like I said, it's for anyone to sort of, to still sort of reference anything that I've probably ever done or anything that I've been a part of or something like that is more than its weight in gold sort of thing. I mean, I can't imagine.
I have this picture of you in 30 years' time, and somebody says to you, come on, Grandad, we'll take you down the pub. There's a band on. And this kid comes out and he's got long black hair, the little beard. He's got a guitar that looks just like that, and he's there fucking playing it behind his head. And you say to yourself, now that's fucking success.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, like I said, it's. I mean, like I said, I've sort of, you know, helped slightly emulated from my heroes and sort of adapted from what they've done. But then to sort of maybe knowing if I've influenced, like I said, someone, you know, someone who wants to play, you know, the Thunderbird bass, or like I said, get into like the type of amps that I use, or anything like that. Because I mean, I've had people asking me before, like, you know, what kind of strings to use, or what effects to use, or you know what things to use, and stuff like that. And I'll happily tell them what I'm using, because it's no secret to what I use and everything. It's, you know, like I said, it's easily accessible to someone like that. And if I've got like some sort of hand into helping someone else, you know, sort of strive to be what I wanted to be when I was a kid, or even now, then like I said, that's cool in my books completely.
Yeah, can't do anything you can say further than that, mate.
Yeah.
So there you have it. But Bertie, before you go, I've got one more question for you.
Go on.
Can you give us all your links so we can, like, if anyone wants to catch up, see where you are, what you're doing, listen to some of your tracks? Can you give us your links on your social media, please, bud?
Can indeed, yeah. So obviously the main one you can check out. So obviously we're all accessible on all platforms, like on Facebook and Instagram and Twitter and everything. So obviously easiest one to find is on Facebook and everything. So you can find Tigertailz on there. You can find the City Kids on there. You can also find Popestar. So you've also got the main websites as well. So you've got tigertailz.co.uk. where you can go on there. You can find out obviously what we're doing, when we can go back out to doing stuff, and find all our music on there as well. The same with the City Kids. You could also go to thecitykids.co.uk. Once again, that's where you can see everything we've got going there. That's where you can get our music. That's where you can get our merchandise as well. And also with the Popestars as well. So you can search on Facebook for Popestars, and we're on there. All which obviously both with Tigertailz and the City Kids, obviously you can find us on Spotify as well, and iTunes, and obviously any, you know, music outlet that you see fit to do it and everything. So, but we mostly appreciate people who come direct to us via the websites and buy straight from us, because obviously we can carry on doing what we're doing and keep doing more stuff for everyone to enjoy.
Thank you very much. What I'll do is I'll put all the links down below. So guys, if you're interested and you want to see more from Bertie, click on the links below. Give the band some love, because they deserve it. They're absolutely amazing.
Thank you very much, man.
Hey, no worries. That's what we're here for. We're all trying to help each other out. So Bertie, keep on doing what you're doing, mate. We appreciate it so much. And thank you very much for being a part of the Scouser and the Scot. Can't thank you enough. So
no, thank you very much for having us. Like I said, it's been an absolute pleasure, never a chore.
Right,
John, it's over to you.
All right then. Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. That was another exciting episode of the Scouser and the Scot. And you know what to do. Until next time, hit that cowbell, subscribe.